Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the live number 3 of this 5-day challenge. It's so great to have all the community and the questions and the commenting. It's been super fun for us to just watch and observe and hear some of the updates from you guys. So thank you so much for sharing and keep up the questions and the support with one another. Today we're going to dive into, or let's recap a little bit. You didn't get a chance to be on the call yesterday.
No. Had much
we
FOMO.
couldn't figure out anything that you want to add or summarize from the movement discussion.
I don't think so. I think you covered everything, and I was kind of writing in the chat as you were speaking. But I do think there's a question that came up a few days ago or yesterday that we haven't addressed that we'll address today around menopause and what to kind of anchor into when it comes to routine when you are postmenopausal. So we'll definitely talk about that today.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you guys can actually write in the chat how things are going, because we're kind of midway through this challenge. So just curious your thoughts, or if questions come up while we're speaking. That'll give us an idea of just how something like this can impact us. Because you don't always know how it's going to land for everyone. So just curious if you've had any insights around mindset and movement, since those are the two topics that we've been going through. And today we'll be going more specifically around food, because I know there's some questions around that.
Yeah. So feel free to share away when you can. I want to start this conversation with a quote that you always say, and that's, how you digest your food is a representation of how you digest life. So, obviously we're talking about meals today, but I feel like we can't talk about food without talking about how we're digesting things emotionally and like how the two interact with one another.
Yeah. So I'm sure all of you have heard the term, you are what you eat, but Ayurveda talks about it in a way that you are what you digest. And how we digest is going to be influenced by how we're digesting life and the stressors that we have in our environment, and just how we're able to process what's going on in life. You may notice that you may hold a lot of your stress in your digestive system. So if you have an event coming up, or if there's something going on that's stressful in your life, maybe there's either constipation or diarrhea, or even pain, or just inability to eat and have an appetite because there's so much stress going on. So I think intuitively we know that the two are connected, but that somehow there's a disconnect that happens over time, where we forget to listen to that gut feeling and what our belly is trying to tell us about our circumstances outside of ourselves. But it's such a reflection of what's going on in our internal world and our external, and how deeply connected they are.
Yeah. Because, we know this from just doing a ton of testing. We see people who are more stuck in that fight or flight state, that you're getting some reflection. Yeah, when you're stuck more in that fight or flight state, and you seem to be responding or reacting a lot to the environment, there's often like this corollary between the emotional state and just getting triggered all over the place, and just everything's becoming more of a problem. And we see these people tend to have more leaky gut, right? More food sensitivities, more digestive issues. And so that's why I thought it was such an important topic to really correlate the two, because often we can be pointing to a food, that food is bad, when really there could be some emotional overwhelm that we're not digesting properly.
Yeah, so we have a mastermind that we're a part of, and we get together every week and talk about different health topics. And the topic this week was on oxalates. And I don't know if any of you have heard about oxalates, but it's found in spinach, almonds, chocolate, legumes. It's in everything. So it's considered a plant toxin. And so they were talking about how bad these oxalates are and how we have to avoid them, and they cause inflammation. And, I listened for a while, and then I raised my hand and was talking about the fact that, it's not the food itself. It's the quality of the foods have changed over time. 2, we don't have all the enzymes and the capacity to digest our foods. And 3, we don't know how to combine foods and cook them properly to actually utilize their gifts. So for example, spinach should not be eaten raw. It should be cooked. And so I brought up the fact that there are billions of Indians and my ancestors that didn't have any meat, because the conversation was more about the carnivore diet versus a plant-based diet.
Well,
And
that must have been a fun topic to be
it was
tuning
fun,
into.
yeah. And so I kind of spoke about, well, culturally, when, if I see my mom cooking spinach and it's called sog, they're boiling it for hours with spices and other things to help the body digest it. So a lot of the ancient cultures, like the Chinese cultures, indigenous cultures, the old cultures understood, even like European, that we have to ferment things in order for our body to digest it properly at certain times of the year. Mm-hmm. So just going back to that point of, we tend to point a finger at foods and forget that it's actually like this vessel that we have to work on and understand how we can create that U diet that we always talk about, so that we're actually digesting and then absorbing. And if there is inflammation being created by eating a certain food, we have to look at ourselves first.
Yeah, that's powerful. And Zach Bush talks about this too, if you guys follow any of his work. He talks about how the soil itself is so depleted, and so the mineral content that helps us make the enzymes, that helps us make the hydrochloric acid, that helps the right microbes to grow so that we can digest and absorb the nutrients effectively. There's so many levels of breakdown that are happening as a result of our modern culture, and it's not a surprise why we're having even these imbalances in oxalates. We're probably extremely magnesium deficient, mm-hmm. and some of the other core minerals that are needed to help to mobilize and keep these things in check, these plant toxins, mm-hmm. that are talked about often. So you said it great, and I think everybody tuning in, it starts with us, it starts with ourselves. Like, what do we need to work on? How can we build our resiliency? How can we strengthen our nervous system, our digestive system, our immune system? That becomes personal responsibility, personal journey. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So great. I'm so happy that we got a chance to really dive into that conversation, because it's so important whenever we're talking about food, is what is the relationship with food. Mm-hmm. Eventually, what we want when we talked about the U diet, we want people to feel like they're in reciprocity with the food that they're consuming. There's a balance. There's a relationship there. You're eating not because you're stuck in an emotional storm and you're disconnected from your body and your feelings, and you're grabbing the seafood diet and you eat it. You're in an ideal relationship. Now that may seem, for some of you that are listening, that may seem like, my goodness, food is controlling me. I am not in control of my choices. What would you say to some of that?
So with something like that, again, going back to the pause that we talked about on our mindset talk, and asking questions. So is this choice going to nourish me, or is this choice going to deplete me? And sometimes the answer is going to be, well, yes, this sugary donut thing is going to nourish me right now because it's what I'm craving and it's what I'm needing. So I would just get you guys to, again, ask more questions. Like, well, where is this thought or this process coming from? And as soon as we make that conscious decision to pause and ask the questions, we start to just understand ourselves better. So it may be that you still end up eating that donut, but what's going to happen next time is that if that moment shows up again, you're going to question it a little bit more, so that you have, again, a deeper understanding of where the behavior is coming from and what you're actually gaining. So another question is, what am I gaining from this, and what am I going to lose from this choice as well?
Yeah. And what I hear you saying when I hear you speak to this, it's like you're creating a little distance between the stimulus and the response, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and between the emotion and the reaction.
Yeah.
So when we are gravitating towards foods we know aren't going to nourish us, there's often an emotion associated with it. So if we can name that emotion and maybe even have a memory of like when that showed up, we can then speak to it in a different way and have a different relationship to it.
Yeah, exactly. So now, what does this have to do with hormones, Sonia? Like this seems like two totally different things, but right. If you can tie those two together.
Yeah, so in regards to hormones, if we go a little bit deeper into our digestive system, there's the bugs, right? Like the microbiome that I'm sure all of you have heard about. So these bugs are the ones that are communicating to our hormones. Our digestive system helps to detoxify hormones out of our body. Our digestive system creates our happy hormones like serotonin. So when there's inflammation in our digestive system, we can't detoxify, say, those excess estrogens from the pesticides or from the plastics or from injected meats and dairy, we're not able to move those out of our body, and then it starts to recirculate. And we're seeing more and more women and men with estrogen dominance in their bodies. And this could look like weight gain around the belly. This might look like acne before your cycle. This in menopause, this is going to look like weight gain, hot flashes, night sweats. For men, it could look like gynecomastia, where they're creating breast tissues or challenges in their prostate. So if your digestive system isn't working, your body is not detoxifying, and all of that is recirculating in your system. And there's a very specific group of bacteria called the estrobolome that are just sitting there waiting to detoxify estrogen. But again, they won't do that if there's inflammation and if there's too much noise in your digestive system.
Yeah. So enter meal timing, right? Like this is the whole reason why it's not just about what you eat, but it's about when you eat. And so in the last call, we were talking about your circadian clock, and really that's what we're trying to do, is harmonize the natural swing of these light-dark cycles that are happening obviously daily, to sync up more specifically with the natural swings in natural hormone secretion throughout our day. And so light is a huge stimulus for hormone release, but so is food, right? So the challenge that we put forth for you guys was to create a meal window that was in service to the circadian clocks, or your circadian rhythm. But also we talked about how the middle of the day was more in touch with that sort of Ayurvedic philosophy of the digestive fire is strongest in the middle of the day, which is where the largest meal could be placed. But let's talk a little bit about, meal timing and why that's so important.
Yeah, so with intermittent fasting, I mean, we've named it intermittent fasting, but I think this is just how humans used to eat. But now we have to have a method and a name for it. Finding out what's your, again, you diet and your rhythm throughout your day is important. Some people might thrive by having a breakfast and a lunch earlier, or some people are going to thrive a little bit later in the day. So depending on if you've already been doing intermittent fasting and you're just on 2 meals, your windows might look a little bit different. For somebody that maybe hasn't done this before and you're still doing the 3 meals, eating before 8 o'clock is going to suppress your
8 in the morning.
8 in the morning
Yeah.
is going to suppress your growth hormone, and so then that will suppress your testosterone. It's going to increase your cortisol, your insulin, some of these other hormones that break muscle down and break your cell structures down. So you want to optimize that morning. We're going to talk more about morning rituals tomorrow, but you want to try to push it at least at 8 o'clock is what our ask was, or even up to 10 if you could. And then in the evening, the reason why we chose like 10 to 6 or 8 to 4 is so that when that digestive fire goes down in the evening and you don't have all those digestive juices, you may notice if you're eating a big meal, you might feel bloated after, or sleep is being disrupted. But if you're eating earlier in that evening, you might notice a change in your sleep patterns too.
Yeah, absolutely. The nighttime rhythm is so important. So that I mentioned the book, The Circadian Code by Dr. Sachin Panda, and he categorically says us humans, we don't metabolize, or we're more insulin resistant as the day goes on. So as we get into the evening time and the light's starting to change, our hormone receptors are less efficient at shuttling energy from the blood and into our cells. And so we're categorically just more hormone resistant at night, which is a direct setup for increasing weight gain and insulin resistance and trouble losing fat, and could be sleep apnea and difficulty getting into a deep restorative sleep because insulin is high when we want to have actually growth hormone high. And so closing the kitchen early enough in the evening allows for a natural secretion of growth hormone, melatonin, all the restoration that we want out of our nighttime sleep window, so that when we wake in the morning, we're still riding this wave of hormonal recovery before we start plugging more food information in.
And this might not be realistic for a lot of families. Kids have activities, or you're working, and maybe dinner time is the time that you actually sit down together and have your meal. So this is why we propose that you push your morning a little bit later if you are eating later in the evening. So if you are doing that, maybe taking some digestive enzymes to help support digestion could be helpful, because I know this happens with our family because Nick usually works a little bit later. So even today, after this call, is when we're having dinner with our boys, and they wanted to wait for us. So we just have to make sure we're doing all the other things to help support the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, there's some questions that came up, but you wanted to make sure we answer. Someone was asking a little bit about intermittent fasting. Maybe we covered it in what we just spoke. Anything else that you think that?
Yeah, so there was a question around the 2 tablespoons of healthy fats per meal and that feeling like maybe too much. So again, it's all about the U diet. So the reason why we say 2 tablespoons of healthy fats is one for cellular health, one for satiation, because often the reason for snacking in between snacks is because we don't feel satiated, but that extra healthy fat can help you do that. And this healthy fat can come in many different forms. So it might be nuts and seeds, it might be ghee that you're cooking with. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's the 2 tablespoons that you drizzle on top of something, but it could be just what you cook with as well.
Yeah, and that's important. Like we're getting fats out of some of our nuts and seeds and things like that. It's also
like olives on the side of your salad, or
exactly.
Yeah, so if it's 2 tablespoons, or if you start with 1 tablespoon, I think the question was alluded to like hormones and weight gain, and I think that is more of a mindset shift, because the sugar industry in the 70s basically told us everything should be non-fat, and that fat's the evil, because just that word, when we hear it, we'll cringe. But what we don't realize that most of our brain is made out of fat. The brain needs fat just as much as it needs the glucose. And our skin also needs fat. Our hormones need fat. Hormones are made from cholesterol. So if we don't have enough, we're not going to have healthy hormones. So depending on where you are in your season, in your menstrual cycle, if you're in your reproductive years or perimenopause or menopause, how much might shift. You probably need more in those reproductive years. And yet in those perimenopause years, we are more prone to insulin resistance. So what we want to do is increase the healthy fats and decrease the processed carbohydrates. And then menopause, it's going to be pretty much the same. So the focus really for this challenge is, as much as you can, focus on whole foods and focusing on the healthy fats and getting rid of those processed foods was the main thing. And if you want to learn how to eat with your cycle, we do have an ebook. If you go to my website, drsoniajensen.com, and you put your email in there, you can get the ebook as well. So that way you can, again, create your U diet.
Yeah, exactly. And like this is kind of why we wanted to put food a little bit further ahead, because food is so related to our nervous system, to our movement, and the actual receptors that get expressed on our cell tissue is dependent on many other factors, not just food. To the point that you made regarding hearing the word fat or incorporating fat into the diet, that one isolated food group or macronutrient is a cog in the entire mechanism of what causes weight gain, right? And it's our stress, it's our nervous system, it's our microbiome, it's our circadian clock, it's when we're actually eating food, it's all of these factors. And so pulling one, is this making sense what I'm saying? Like if we're just isolating one macronutrient in this whole interesting system that's called the human body, it's so hard to say good or bad. Because some people, maybe some people don't digest fat very well. Some people may have gallbladder issues. So I know we've done our DNA test with a company called DNA Power that told us our ability to break down different macronutrients. Someone who is struggling with fat metabolism may not do well here, and this is what we said, the U diet. You got to listen to how your body's responding. And a caveat here, how you respond right now probably will not be how you always respond, which is also important. Or
have responded. So in our metabolic upgrade program that we teach a lot about diet variation, and this is a reason for that. So even my own story, I started fasting around 6 years ago, right? It's about 6 years. So I was doing much higher fat, really low carb. I even stopped eating grains for a big chunk of time. And I brought grains back in this year, and I feel healthier because, again, I created variation and listen and recognize that right now in my season, my body's actually requiring some extra grains. So they're still whole grains, so it's still healthy, but I had definitely eliminated like those kinds of carbs and was just doing like higher healthy fat.
Yeah, I think this is sort of like the dance with diet, right? And this is why it's such a like ongoing conversation, because we're always experiencing the edges of our diet experience, right? So you pushed into the edge of higher fat and really restricted those grain carbohydrates, and you recognized where there was a limit and where maybe there was some diminishing returns, and then you're swinging back. Like this is the reality with it's an experiment. And this is what we were kind of talking about before with reciprocity. Are we willing to listen to what our body, the signals that our body is telling us? I mean, how many people, have experiences where they started something because it worked and then they never stop it, right? Like it could be a supplement, it could be a diet, it could be an exercise program, it could be, just something that we keep repeating. And yet our body thrives in variation, just like the gut microbes that exist in our gut. We're healthier when there's a wide variety of different microbes that are there.
Like before you met me, you only used salt and pepper.
Exactly. And now I've got this whole wide plethora of spices that I didn't know were even available, right? Yeah, you brought so much color and
You're welcome.
And variety to my life.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So the other questions, I guess, weren't necessarily on the topic of meals. So I don't know if you want me to go over those right now.
Please do.
So the big question was around menopause and bioidentical hormones previously. And so we're not going to go into that in great detail, but everything has a role for individuals when it's needed. So I always say you want to test before going down any sort of path, whether it's like supplements or bioidentical hormones or prescription. So the difference between bioidentical and synthetic, the most simple way that I describe it is your hormone looks like this in your body, synthetic will look like this. Whereas bioidentical or human identical, they make it so it matches the chemical structure. So that's the big difference. I actually had a call with a patient today, and she was sharing with me that she saw an endocrinologist and basically said to her, you're over 60, you don't have a right to have vitality and higher libido. And so that makes me a little angry, because I believe...
She got a little angry.
I got a little bit angry.
Because you shared your anger and frustration with me.
Because I think everybody has a right to feel vital until the day they're not here, and to enjoy life. And if we live in a time where food is not the same, the soil is not the same, our level of stress is not the same, everything has shifted. So yes, in the past, when we've lived in a village setting and ate organic, ate off the land, and had this relationship with the earth, it was very different. The transition that your grandmother had into menopause, or even maybe mother had into menopause, is very different than the woman today. And so some extra help with bioidentical can be supportive for some women, again, depending on how you're processing those hormones and what else you need. It's not the answer, it's more of a band-aid for sure. When we look at our cellular work or our toxicities, our stressors, like really taking a deep dive into that and using these tools at the same time is when I see magic happen. Because then there's actually a capacity to sleep. The hot flashes are gone. There's more energy. There's more vitality. And so really what that does, it gives women hope. And so that is what made me angry today, that endocrinologist, he sat there looking at a woman's basically taking her hope away. So I hope through these conversations, or all the conversations that we're having, that you guys start to realize that change is always possible. We're new people every 7 years. Our cells are turning over all the time. Our stomach cells turn over every 3 to 5 days. Like, we're constantly new, so we constantly have an opportunity and a choice. I don't know if that answers the menopause question, but...
Yeah, well, I think it highlighted some important things. And one is like personal autonomy and personal authority. You get to dictate what you choose to bring in through your emotional system, what you're hearing and how you choose to interpret it. Who knows what was going on with that doctor and why he had that paradigm that he did. Maybe because he only sees people that are interested in medicating themselves and suppressing symptoms, and maybe that's just, so who knows what's going on there. But it's an unfortunate conversation that we, again, unfortunately hear very often, that It's just because you're getting old, like, just it comes with the territory. And
Nick likes to see the good in everyone. I like to stay in my anger for a little bit.
well, and there's nothing wrong with that. No, I didn't mean to say it like that. It was more like, I think it's just super interesting why people say the things that they do, especially when they're in a position where they can drastically influence someone. And you know, and I think, like, if I was a doctor in that model, I would probably lose some hope as well, because the tool set that's available to, you know, physicians in the allopathic model is really like, this is a nail, I've got a hammer, you know, and we're not really looking at recovery and rebuilding and you know, this concept of healing. It's just not really built into that paradigm. So but not every person who sees a doctor like that is going to appreciate that that's where the doctor's coming from. Obviously, as a patient,
and I'm not saying that they're all like that. I have one that I
no.
worked with closely with a patient, and he was amazing. So
yeah. Well, we were trained by an OBGYN.
But this was an endocrinologist.
No, okay. Anyways, we're very much you know, in touch with other doctors in the allopathic model, and this is often a frustration that they share, right? Okay. So
that's meals.
That's meal timing.
Meal timing, and please share your recipes. If you guys have recipes or just pictures of what you're eating, because that can sometimes give somebody motivation or an idea. So please share whatever you can on this platform.
Yeah, and we haven't picked the time for tomorrow, but we'll be on tomorrow. We'll
like keeping you on your toes.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and those of you who caught the recording, bless you. Thank you for watching. Keep sharing, and we'll see you soon.
So you may have been following us for a little while, or maybe you're brand new to our channel. Either way, we want you to have the opportunity to really deepen your experience of what you're learning. But we want to give you the opportunity to be in the fold of our community, to be with us more regularly, and that's the Health Ignited Club.
Yeah, community is so important to us, and we learn so much from each other. And I think getting together when we do once a month, it just invites us to ask more questions about ourselves, about our journey, about our health. So we would love for all of you to join us there.
Yeah, and you know, so much of our health plans are really dictated around life. Life is crazy, life is challenging. It's easy to fall off the wagon, so to speak. And we've got a touch point each month, and we've got resources for you in the membership portal. There's so much to keep you in the momentum and the motivation of really making everything that you're learning into a lifestyle practice.
It's all about accountability and support.
Yeah, so join us there at Health Ignited Club.